Do you want to make it, whoever? Welcome to another edition of Point Counterpoint. This is Robert.
I'm Sujay.
I'm Jacob.
Okay.
And we have somebody new here. Do you introduce yourself, please? Oh, she is not here just yet. Okay, that's cool. Well, we have had a lot.
I'm here. It's Yasmine.
Jasmine,
Hi.
welcome. We've had a
Thank
lot.
you.
We've had a lot of newsworthy events. We have the Ukraine issue. We have the protest in Ottawa. What should we talk about first?
I think we were just thinking about starting with Ukraine.
Okay. Do you think there'll be a war?
I mean, for me, it's hard to imagine like a war in the traditional sense, I guess, that we usually think of. As far as I don't believe there's going to be necessarily that many troops on the ground, but I do see. I mean, Ukraine and Russia, there's been tensions for years. And that tension doesn't really seem like it's going away. And I guess it just kind of, I mean, I think it's going to be another one of those proxy, wars that we have all the time, where it's mostly, drone strikes, bombings, stuff like that. But I hope, for the sake of the Ukrainian people, that they can avoid conflict. I don't know. It's a bit scary. I don't see Putin or the United States really backing down. It seems more like it's an escalation period right now with troops being sent out. So I guess we'll just have to see if they send out more troops and how aggressive Putin's response is.
Now, the Ukraine-Russian conflict, I wouldn't even consider it a proxy, because there was some real fighting between the Russian-backed separatists and the Ukrainians. I think the casualties were in the tens of thousands.
Yep.
That's not a legit world war, but that's still pretty heavy when it comes to Ukraine. There was also the battle in Georgia too. So, I think it's obvious that Putin wants to restart the old Soviet Union, at least get his territories back. I'm sorry, go ahead.
Oh, sorry, I definitely do agree with Rob, actually, in this sense.
Oh my God.
There just seems something to be kind of there is something different about this this particular instance of conflict in Europe. I mean, like, there is, I think, over 100,000 Russian troops at the Ukrainian border right now, right? That I think it was estimated that Russia has 70% of so the amount of troops that Russia needs to invade Ukraine and occupy Ukraine, totally, it has about 70% of those troops currently at the Ukrainian border right now. So it just needs to increase its troop amount by 30% in order to be able to invade Ukraine. So yeah, I mean, I feel like Putin is definitely, he definitely wants to invade Ukraine. He definitely wants to regain these territories of the Soviet Union. And we saw that he's been doing this for the past decade. For instance, Crimea, right? He just annexed Crimea. Yeah, like it's
and Georgia before that.
Huh? Sorry.
And Georgia before that.
Yep. We see that this is basically his foreign policy. His major foreign policy goal for the past decade was just reforming or the lost territories of the Soviet Union. And it is really like quite a dumb policy when you think about it, because like none of these people who Putin is like actually invading, right? None of the countries that Putin is invading, none of their populations actually want to join Russia. I mean, so like the majority of Ukraine, vast majority of Ukrainians view themselves as Ukrainians. They don't view themselves as Russians, so they don't want to join Russia. I mean, it's essentially like he is just forcing people to join Russia, and he's basically making up the excuse that like these people are the same nationality, that they're the same cultures, that they deserve to be together, when ultimately, when you actually look at the population of Ukraine, they're very much opposed to this, right? So it's I feel like Putin's justification for it is also quite bad.
Yeah, well, this is when I think you should be worried. Russia isn't going to do anything during the Olympics, but also Russia can't wait for it to be spring So I think if something happens, it's going to happen the period between the end of the Olympics and the spring. And you're like, oh, why? Why? What is the spring? It's tanks. You don't want tanks going through the mud. You want the ground to be frozen, especially marshy ground. If it's going to happen, it's going to happen after the Olympics. Just to point out some basic military stuff there. But this is different. And also because, basically Russia said, we do not want NATO to expand. And the agreement basically we had when the Soviet Union fell is that we won't expand NATO if you don't invade anybody. And Putin did invade some people, Ukraine, Georgia. And the problem is they want to be NATO members. And that's a red line for Putin. So who's going to blink?
I mean, also,
it's hard to imagine, I don't see, I think this is kind of more flexing than anything. I mean, I definitely think, I hoped, maybe that is just wishful thinking, and I think that you guys both bring up, great points. And, Putin is one, yes, definitely to flex and to, he's been pushing, he wants to expand Russia. But I just feel like Ukraine, it's once, with Georgia and with some of the other places, it didn't feel like he crossed, I don't know where I'm drawing the line, but I feel like if once that, this Ukraine situation, if it becomes a full, troops on the ground, annexation, taking over Ukraine, it feels that's when the United States will get involved. And that thinking about that is a very scary thought, but it feels like ever since the 80s, Russia and the United States have been on the verge of attacking each other, and yet nothing's happened.
Well,
as far as just proxy wars, obviously. But
it came close a few times,
I don't see it.
The Cuban Missile Crisis was very close, and also there was a exercise called Able Archer we did in the 80s, and it was basically like a practice nuclear attack. The Russians, Soviets, were sure it was a real nuclear attack, and they were sitting there with their hands near the button waiting to respond. It's, they're paranoid, but I mean, if you know a little bit about Russian history, they're the reason they're paranoid. I'm not making excuses for them, but I mean, look at their losses in World War II, or, against the Mongol. They've had it bad.
Yeah.
I mean, I can see why he wants a buffer zone because of the crap Russia's went through, but it's not an excuse. I mean, it's not.
Sujay and Jasmine, what do you guys think?
I apologize. CJ, Jasmine.
Oh, I'm sorry. Me?
No, let Yasmin go. Let Yasmin go.
I'm a little bit older than you guys, even though I don't look it. So I remember the 60s. I was very, very young, but this kind of just feels a little off. But I agree with Jay a little bit. I don't think it's going to actually go that far. I think he's flexing because it feels to me that if it went that far at this point, it would be a whole serious like world war, like other people would get involved. I'm just not getting that sense. And my dentist is Ukraine, and we talked about it, and he kind of feels like they're just trying to make a stance, but it's not going to actually go to the limit. So for right now, I'm on the fence, and I'm going to keep up with it even more. So right now, it's more of how I feel about it than actually me saying I know for sure. Well, none of us know for sure, but I just kind of feel like he's making a lot of noise because he can, and trying to see if he can push those limits like he does. So that's kind of just what I think about it.
CJ?
Yeah, and like if you look at what's been happening over the last couple of weeks, the leader of Ukraine has said that it's not that bad as what the media is portraying it out to be. So that is one thing. And the second thing is, no matter what happens, Putin will do what he wants. He doesn't care about NATO. He doesn't care about the US. He will do what he wants. And it's also, and so what's interesting is that he was quiet for the time that Trump was there. Once Trump goes out of office, he's out there doing his thing. So you have to keep that in mind. You have to keep that in mind too. So people knew that, you don't mess with someone, who's not intent to starting wars. And then once you have someone like, a Democrat, who are not opposed to starting wars, you see, the whole world go haywire. So that is one thing. And the second thing is, it's just ridiculous, man, what's happening, because people in the US, they're more concerned with what's happening on the Russia-Ukraine border, while they're ignoring their own border. Like, why are people okay with this? Like,
Okay, well,
why?
brings up a
It's
question. The
it's just hard to
United States people,
get my head around it.
should we go to
No,
war for
absolutely
Ukraine?
not.
My answer is no.
Just responding back to Sujay's point about like left-leaning presidents not like being opposed to war and that causing escalation of conflict. I mean, I think that a bigger reason why Putin. I think that a bigger reason why Putin.
I said that the Western media is just blowing out of proportion is what the president of Ukraine said.
I know, but you also said that Putin didn't do this during Trump as well. I mean, the reason why I don't think Putin did this during Trump. Okay, wait. I think the reason why Putin didn't do this during Trump's administration is because Trump essentially gave Putin what he wanted. I mean, Trump removed sanctions from Russia. Trump removed, Trump essentially gave Putin what he wanted, right? Like Putin didn't really have to put up any.
Biden shut down our pipeline and said the Nord pipeline was okay. So I think Biden has given. I don't want to go tit for tat, but they're the counter to that. But go ahead. Sorry.
I mean, also, yeah, I do think that the Nord pipeline. I am also against the Nord pipeline. But like also you have to remember that Trump has one of the first actions that he took when he came into office was remove Russian sanctions, right? So it's like essentially like Putin is not gonna go against somebody who is appeasing him, right? So that's why I personally think that Putin didn't attack Ukraine during the Trump administration just because he was already being appeased by Trump. But going back to the idea of the Nord pipeline, I think that is also a very valid point. I disagree with Biden, saying signing off on that. I'm not sure if he signed off on that or just verbally said his approval.
He did.
But I also
actually I don't know if it was official. I'm sorry, you're right. I don't know if it's official.
Biden approves.
So Jake, okay, what about the rest of you guys? Yes, fighting for Ukraine or no fighting for Ukraine?
Actually, no.
Jasmine, what do you think?
Seems like it seems like Biden actually sanctioned Russian the Nord pipeline. He put sanctions on it. Sorry.
I'm selfish. I think no. We have enough problems of our own. So mine would be no.
I mean, for me, to be honest, I would say no for different reasons. I personally agree if Russia is trying to annex Ukraine and doing it in a way that's harmful, similar ways to the ways that the United States and Russia harm Afghanistan and Syria and Jordan, other nations like that, where they annex and they bomb without thinking, like the last week when they dropped a drone strike and killed 14 people, including children, to get a random ISIS leader. I don't want to get involved because I don't think that would be helpful. But at the same time, I don't want to leave the Ukrainians to their defenses against an overwhelming Russian, imposition. But it's just, I don't believe in the U.S. military to do anything beyond terrorize. So I don't really feel, I don't feel like the U.S. Army has done anything noble in decades, so I don't really want us involved because I think that it would be harmful more than helpful. I think it would just escalate conflict and then lead to excuses for more and more conflict.
Well, that will definitely be a discussion for another time because I would debate that. But in essence, I think everybody agrees. And I would think the American public probably agrees with us.
Yeah. Well, and I also want to preface that I'm not blaming individual people in the army. I don't want to say that like the people that sacrifice to take care of their families, I don't want to say that that's anything but brave and amazing that they do that and that they volunteer their service. But from Vietnam to the involvement in the Middle East and Afghanistan and Syria, it just I don't feel like there's been anything successful in a long time. Is what I'm trying to say. And
because I don't want to jump subjects. I do think Afghanistan was justified. It was poorly done, but that's all I'll say.
I mean, I think the problems with U.S. interventionism, they come from higher up. So, you know, our presidents or military generals who actually decide to like nation build instead of, and, you know, try to stay there for longer and change like the culture of an area instead of just, you know, getting the objective done. I feel like that is one of the problems of U.S. interventionism, but I also agree. I think U.S. interventionism has historically been pretty bad.
All right, Sujay wants to talk about the truckers.
All right.
Yes, sir.
Yeah.
All right. I'll let Sujay, you can go first if you'd like.
Start, man.
Yeah. So what's like what's on your head, Bob? Like, you know.
What do I think? Oh, I find it, my personal opinion, this is a legit protest of the people against.
Rob, can you hear me?
Can everybody hear me?
Yeah.
Okay. I think this is a legit protest of the people. And I find it interesting that watching all the hippies from the 70s talk, you know, that fight authority are kind of like on authority side. I mean, this is I'm vaccinated, but I agree with somebody's right to not want to take it. I think it's fundamentally American. And I agree with the protesters. It's your own choice, you know, and the way they're treating these protesters, I think makes them a hypocrite. It really does. You know, you can't be against authority when you're supporting authority. I mean, you know, look, Neil Young, rocket in the free world, but let's ban Joe Rogan. It doesn't work that way. I mean, I think it's a legit uprising, and I'm on their side, even though I'm vaccinated.
Yeah, apparently it's, you know, the Trudeau government is lobbying the Biden government to implement these laws. You know, even though the Biden administration is averse to such laws. So. Yeah.
And the Biden administration's pushing Spotify to get rid of Rogan's broadcast, which I just think is wow. Our own government is legit anti-free speech, and you know, I have a mega progressive friend, and it's kind of weird where, you know, we're on the same side when it comes to vaccines. Again, I'm vaccinated, but I think you should have the right to say no. And she's like, God, the only person on my side is you. But yeah, I mean, free speech means the right for somebody to say something you don't agree with. You know, what did Henry say? I would spend the rest of my life arguing for the right for you to say something I would spend the rest of my life debating against. That's how it works, man. It's free speech or not.
And also, Rob, what do you think of Trudeau going in hiding, man? It's just so embarrassing.
It should be.
Guys, what do you think?
So just responding, I mean, you guys brought up a lot of points, so I guess we'll have to like systemically just go in order. So what I think about the trucker protest in general, I think that, well, so I mean, first of all, like none of these people had a problem with any vaccine mandate in the past. I mean, none of these truckers were going against the polio vaccine, and these truckers are going against the measles vaccine, right?
Because they weren't experimental.
There was, I mean, the polio was also experimental. I mean, it wasn't tested for 10 years. I mean, it was as soon as it came out, people were being inoculated with it, right? So it's simply the same rollout as COVID. But essentially, like, none of them had a problem with the past vaccine mandates that we had, the historical vaccine mandates that we had for the past century, right? So that's just one thing that, you know, it kind of shows that for some reason they are only targeting the COVID vaccine, which I think in general, this is just more of a political target.
Well, why is that?
And I mean, I feel like it just generally shows how kind of like it just shows the flaws are in the holes in their ideology, saying that this is against, you know, freedom.
Ideology.
When they themselves, right, were completely fine and most of the time supported the previous vaccine mandates in Canada and the US.
Have you looked at the VAERS stats?
Sorry?
Do you know what VAERS is?
What is VAERS?
It's basically the CDC runs all their bad reactions. They have a big list of all the negative reactions from all the viruses. And, my wife, who thinks all the anti-vaxxers are crazy, she made a comment, well, let me see your research. I sent her a good 20 pages of stuff just from the CDC, just from medical journals. Like I can never say that name, the heart thing, myocarditis is going through the roof. I mean,
it's
there's
not,
legit
I still think that
here.
there's less than, I think,
That
like, there's less than 10,000 people who got myocarditis out of the millions and millions who got vaccinated, which is one. And also the virus is self-reported. So it's, I mean, if it's self-reported, obviously, right, there's going to be statistical errors there because people are just going to lie. And also, right, so
Lie?
that's, yeah, because virus is
And
self-reported.
dude, let's talk about lies. I've seen people who were a hospice and then they catch COVID and they listed as a COVID death. That's a lie.
I mean,
Well,
no,
I
'cause
mean,
we
I wouldn't
described
say
this.
necessarily it's a lie. I mean, they just
Lie.
had. Well, it's like, I
Okay,
mean,
it's like
if
I
there's,
had
well,
COVID.
let me go through my
Okay.
point
Like,
really quick. I mean, like, if someone, if someone is in bad shape and they trip and fall and hit their head and they die,
Mhm.
I mean, that's still like if I fell hit my head, I wouldn't die, but because they were so weak, I mean, I still feel like it would be inaccurate to not put that as the cause of death. I do want to hear what Jasmine has to say about this, because I actually have not heard her takes on like vaccines or anything about that yet. So
Okay, for me right now, it's a touchy subject because I lost someone to it, but I'm the type of person that I feel like Jay does. I'm vaccinated, but I do believe that we have the right to decide whether we want to or not. Like it took me a long time to do that because I just don't like having anything that I'm not really sure exactly what it is. But if we do that, we have to kind of go on research and trust because I think about everything I do every day. When I drink water, is that really water? I'm having some Pepsi. Like what's in the Pepsi? I'm taking aspirin. A lot of things we do are just built on trust. And I've lived through a lot of the different vaccines, and I have 3 children. So with my 3 sons, I have 2 that are vaccinated. One got vaccinated because he was going to lose his job. So he gave up his choice. My other son just was going to do it anyway, and my other son won't do it at all. So obviously, I listen to everybody, and I just can't believe that this one time in our lifetime, that this one vaccine has become so polarized, and my mind always goes to, why is this any different? All my children had to get vaccinated when they went to school. They stick them in the arm. We don't really know what's in it. So I'm so on the fence with how I feel about it. But I do, from my heart, believe that we do have the right to make whatever decision we feel as though it's best for us. And then you can put some safety precautions in. And I know we talked about Joe Rogan, and I used to love him, but what I feel is that maybe he should be a little bit more responsible because you have people following him just because he said so. And I just don't think he can give his opinion, but a lot of people follow him like it's like he's someone that you do what I say. So for me, it's emotional. I've lost somebody to it. I've had 5 friends catch it.
Mhm.
All my friends have some lingering, it's a virus. See, for me, I don't look at it as COVID, the vaccine. To me, I look at it as a virus. And the virus is running rampant in people that I know. So that's how I look at it. I take the label. See, I'm someone, I don't like labels per se.
Sure.
So I just take the label off of it and say, well, what do we do about this virus? So that's kind of my take on it.
Well, I don't think people were necessarily following Joe Rogan or his guest, who was, by the way, the creator of the mRNA, I can't say that word, vaccine.
mRNA.
Thank you. And the difference is, because first of all, I've been a nurse all my life. I've been on the front line with COVID from day one. Most of the people I work with have had it. And yeah, I feel like I'm kind of know more about it than everyone else. I mean, like it's like somebody having a car accident, dying from a car accident, and they had COVID and they're labeling it as a COVID death. Without a doubt, this has been politicized. Without a doubt, this is being treated differently than every other vaccine. I can spend all day talking about differences. And how it's being done is different than all the other vaccines. I've never cared about any other vaccine. And what's the difference? Like she said, there's a lot of differences. I mean, I don't have the time on this program to go through all the differences. That would need to be a separate program, would probably get banned anyway. But
Rob,
this one's different.
I just want to refer to
Yeah.
Yasmine's point, where she said that, you know, she's never seen a vaccine that has been so politicized and that's so dividing. You know, that is because, Yasmine, you have to look at who started all this. You know, it was the Democrats during the debates when they said that, you know, if Trump endorses the vaccine, we're not going to take it. I think that's what started it all off, saying that, oh, if you're on this side, you're going to take it. If you're on this side, you're not going to take it. So, you know, I think that's where it all started off, the vaccine hesitancy in the US at least. But yeah, that's the starting point, according to me.
If you look at any like poll, though, you see that left is very much less vaccine hesitant than the right is. I mean, that's just a simple fact. I agree, man. Like going right now into the people pushing vaccine hesitancy right now are Tucker Carlson, Laura Ingraham, and basically the entirety of Fox News. The people pushing vaccine hesitancy are conservatives. It's as simple as that.
I totally agree. But what I'm saying,
well,
what I'm telling you is, the vaccine hesitancy was started off by the Democrats.
It was. I remember that.
Yeah. Let's not lie.
Remember, they said that they would take it if it was endorsed by a doctor, not endorsed by only President Trump. That's what they were saying. If President Trump came out, President Trump was a guy who like told people to inject bleach into their arms. That's why they said this. Like they're saying if President Trump is the only person who is telling you to take the vaccine without the consent of a doctor, without the endorsement of a doctor, then obviously they're not going to take it. They're going to wait for the consent and endorsement of a doctor.
Quote unquote, I won't take the Trump vaccine.
Well,
it proves my point. It proves my point.
Okay, guys.
Yeah, I mean, I just want to say, like, my personal opinion on it is, yes, it's mainly focused on the right. But I know a lot of people on the left and people that I like, for example, Kyrie Irving. I love the NBA. I watch a ton of basketball. Kyrie Irving has a ton of takes that I agree with. He always advocates for, indigenous people. He's a really good guy. He's grounded in his beliefs. He's a little bit, like out there, but he is very into like holistic medicine.
Mm-hmm.
And so he's not into vaccines. He doesn't ever get vaccines. And it makes me, and him and there's a lot of people on the left that don't want to get vaccines either in America. I mean, because I think in America, compared to a lot of other places in the world, it's very polarizing because I think like Sujay said, I mean, it's just a culture war. I mean, and that's the thing that I don't like about Joe Rogan is Joe Rogan perpetually, that is not true.
He supported Bernie Sanders.
That guy
he's so ridiculous.
He's not a conservative.
Okay, well, he's not a leftist. I think he identifies as a libertarian, like a right-wing political ideology.
Yeah, I mean, I
right wings, dude. They're like basically
I would say, well, anti-government is kind of I would say more, kind of. I mean, you could definitely be, it's more towards like anarchism with on the left, but libertarian is more like anti-government with the right, in my personal opinion.
I always view libertarian as like anarchy conservatives. That's kind of.
I mean, I think that's a relatively, libertarian, like an anarchy conservative and, leftist. I mean, they're just called anarchists, I think, or I'm sure there's a better word for it. But I mean, I'm honestly, I'm starting to just get tired of it. I don't think that like it's getting really frustrating to me because like in America, like we can never agree on anything. And that's I think the great part about this podcast is that we don't agree on a lot of things, but we actually talk about them and have a dialogue. But there's so many people in America that will just listen to whatever Joe Rogan says or whatever the news media tells them or whatever. And it's just really frustrating because it just feel like you can't get past that block. And so even something with vaccines that I feel like should be relatively universal, most of us could agree to take it. Because like Yasmine said, no one cares about taking the flu shot. It's been politicized. It's a culture war and it's frustrating. That's all I
It is
got.
because it didn't used to be this way. We could
Yes.
agree to disagree because like I said, I have 3 kids. I got 2 that did and 1 that don't, but we're not like saying the one that don't want it. He's the only one that's not vaccinated, but we're not going to ostracize him. We're just like, well, okay, so you can always agree to disagree and you have the right to feel the way you want to feel and you just bring your point up and then you do you're not supposed to take it. I've never seen anything like this ever and I don't even know why. So that's just my last
The
thought on
division's
it.
getting worse too.
Yeah, it is.
It is. That's why the hope is, and again, I told all the other guys this, but the reason why I kind of started this program is if we keep on getting divided, we're going to have like a effing war. And I just want people to talk to each other again, because I still think that there's more in common than not in common. And if we just talk to each other, we'll find the other sides like human, even if they're wrong. I'm kidding. That's a joke. But
Yeah, I mean, well, I mean,
you know.
I don't find I mean, like, we find a lot of things. I think we find a lot of things to disagree on. But to be honest, I mean, I consider you guys like my friends,
Mhm.
like we've had so many conversations together that, like, I feel like you can work past that. And even though we don't agree on these things, I mean, like, I feel like for the most part, I mean, we've had guests that weren't
we have.
respectful in the past, but I think for the most part, I think Yasmin has done great, and I think it's been great
Yeah.
and very nice. It gives me a little bit of hope, because
That's the beauty of
even
this
though
podcast.
we're so on the different spectrum on things, I feel like at least we don't hate each other, like.
I also think that if we talk, we could come to a middle ground where maybe none of us is thrilled, but we don't hate. Like a middle
Yeah.
ground where like,
Right.
oh, we're grudging, like, fine, okay. Like on almost every issue, I bet on almost every issue, because me and Jake, even though Jake thinks all this voter fraud stuff is hooey, me and him still came to a middle ground where we were both happy. You remember that, Jay? We both, I don't remember the exact details, but we worked out an agreement where we were both content. My point is, I think if people talk and actually treat the other side as human, I think
Right.
we can come to some acceptable agreement on almost every issue where everyone gives a little bit.
Absolutely.
So,
But also, I
The
Right.
think
divide
we,
is not
And
as
agree
the
to
divide is
disagree.
not as
That's
the divide is not as bad as what the narrative is. So
but also just going off that, we also kind of have to put in perspective that we as ordinary people and we don't really hold the power in American politics. It's really the
You're not.
corporations and lobbyists who hold the power, right? The rich hold the power. So essentially, as long as they keep on donating money to polarizing politicians, as long as they continue to keep us polarized, I feel like we're really not going to be able to achieve the middle ground that we're looking for. So I think it really, if we want to achieve a middle
Well, I
ground, it
think the
requires a
media is
reformation of
just as
the
fought for.
entire system. Sorry?
Yeah. I think the media is just as fought for polarizing people as opposed to politicians. We've had that discussion before. The media is a primary, and it's done on purpose. We've agreed on that too. It's done on purpose so they can have power.
Yeah, I think it's a lot of institutions, the media. I think corporate lobbyists are a very big one. And obviously that influences
Yes.
the perspectives of politicians.
So we kind of completely jumped away from the general protest. Do you do the? Okay, I know you don't agree with the Ottawa. Do they have the
Absolutely,
right to
yeah.
protest?
absolutely they do.
yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Absolutely. I think we can
mean,
all
well,
agree. Everyone
we-
has the right
Yes.
to protest
Yeah,
whatever they
but-
want,
but
even if it's
also-
stupid.
Guys,
But
and
also
before we go
remember,
on, like this,
I don't-
Jay.
Sorry, I was just gonna say, like, I'm not sure, but if leftists did this, I feel like the right would kind of be calling us Antifa or whatever. Because remember, like these like people right
The
there,
leftists
they're blocking
did it
streets and
all
they're like
year
they're
last year.
shutting down and they're shutting down
Yeah.
your transportation in Ottawa, which is something that the left has done as well, right? We've shut down streets and all this stuff. The thing is, right, like
Yes.
I feel like whenever the left does this type of like high level protest or we shut down infrastructure and shut down streets, the right calls us Antifa, and the right calls us like insurrectionists and rioters, right? So I feel like if the left were to do this same protest, I feel like we'd be being called like Antifa and rioters and a bunch of like.
Well, the left is calling the protesters names. But I mean,
But we're not
it's
calling
kind
them.
of
We're not calling
out,
them.
you know, you
We're
want to
not
get
calling
your
them
point through.
rioters. In fact, I think we're calling them
No,
protesters.
they're calling them terrorists.
We're not.
No,
Which
they're not. They're
which
calling them that they should be arrested.
which leftist
and-
called which leftist called trucker a terrorist?
Lots of them.
Which one?
What do you mean? Which one?
the Ottawa police.
You have the whole. You have. Sorry. Go on.
Trudeau, I can't remember his exact quotes, but you know, I mean, like him and the Ottawa police chief just said, you know, that basically threatened to call the military on them and that they're terrorizing people. I would have to look up the quote, and honestly, that's going to have to be conjecture because I can't remember the exact source. I remember reading it, so I'll take my lumps on that one. I don't remember who, and so I can't say it was true.
Well,
Before
I
we
mean,
go off topic,
go ahead,
before we
Sujay.
before we go off topic, what are your thoughts on GoFundMe like freezing almost $9 million in cash?
That's criminal.
Ridiculous, man. That's criminal, exactly.
So can you give us a synopsis on the story, Sujay?
Yeah, so all people who wanted to support the truckers, right? So they had used a link, you know, wherein they would send them money so that everything could be funded, the trucker protest. But then GoFundMe said that, you know, this is inciting violence, something like that, and they froze all they froze the cash, saying that we are going to give it to credible charities whom we think are good. So that's wrong, man. That's criminal.
Yeah, I mean, I think the reason why they did that is because technically the protest was unlawful, I believe, because they have crowd gathering like restrictions. So I think the reason why they did that is because, and the reason why the chief called them unlawful is because it was like they have. I mean, they can't like have these big events.
I agree. You know, GoFundMe might have its own rules and regulations, but then the basic thing they can do is refund the money, right?
But it should have gone back to where it came from. I do agree with that. But GoFundMe is shady, man. GoFundMe is always been like that, dude. You can find a GoFundMe for any stupid cause you could ever want. I definitely agree. GoFundMe definitely could use a little bit of a reality check and some better responsibility, because I've seen some stupid, very stupid stuff on GoFundMe. Lots of scams and stuff like that. They just don't do a good job policing it at all. And the thing is, if they were gonna like declare this GoFundMe unlawful, that they should have had the resources to shut it down before it got to $9 million. I mean, that's just a fail on the company's part. I mean, come on, like you can't let. But I mean, I've watched GoFundMe's reach $100,000 for air umbrellas, like literal like scam, like the most ridiculous scams you've ever heard. So it does not surprise me to hear GoFundMe's doing shady stuff at all.
Yasmine, what do you think of this?
GoFundMe?
Yeah.
No, because I still go back to the girl who put the Gorilla Glue in her hair and got no, I'm just, they need to be regulated. I mean, you see, some people are responsible and other people aren't. So you have to always go on the side to think that people won't be responsible. So you should just regulate it. Yeah, it's crazy. The girl put Gorilla Glue in her weave or something instead of the regular, this hair glue. So they did a GoFundMe for her for that. Now this girl has gotten a whole new product line. I can't even say, I said to myself, and my girlfriend's like, what can we think of that's stupid? You know, so we can go to GoFundMe and get some money, because I mean, if someone says that the glue is for, you know, like wood, okay, so like, why would you put in your hair and then people feel sorry for her? And she got like $2 million. It's like really crazy. So no, just regulate. Some people aren't mature. People are goofy. You just got to regulate them. That's all I say about that.
I remember that Gorilla Glue situation. She got the bag for that. She was very rich off of putting Gorilla Glue in her hair. I mean, that I respect entrepreneurship, but
me too.
It was a very American.
But with that in mind, like regulate it. Yeah, it really was.
It really was.
We're in agreement that like
well,
Gorilla Glue should be
apparently,
able to, sorry.
I'm sorry.
I was gonna say, I think we're in agreement that Guerrilla Group should be able to like not facilitate the donations.
Yes.
They shouldn't be forced to like, allow, like they shouldn't be forced to create the donate or host the donation platform on their site, but also they can't just like freeze payments and keep the money, right? They have to refund it. So I think we're in agreement with that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I don't know exactly what they raised the money for. If it was bail funds, that definitely shouldn't have been taken away, because bail funds are
Right.
like a very common. I mean, for I remember like a ton of people were getting arrested at Black Lives Matter protests because, I mean, for protesting police are going to harass you. So I mean, I remember a ton of people. I donated to people's bail funds. So I definitely think even though I don't agree with the protests that they're doing, I think they still should get the money to be bailed out or whatever the situation was.
All right, basically, just want to respond to
Mm.
my earlier comment. It seemed like somebody that works under Trudeau said we are not a separatist or terrorist, which the truckers took it as basically Trudeau saying that, well, they are terrorists. And I haven't actually saw the video because I'm not going to play it right now. So that's secondhand information, but I'm just saying that's where the source came from.
Okay.
So.
Okay.
Okay, so do you guys want to move on to something else from Ottawa, or do you want to go to our main subject?
We can Sujay, what do you think?
Let's go to the questions, man. That's the fun part.
All
You
right.
guys have some good questions for us. I know you want to know why conservatives are so awesome, right? Right?
Okay.
Yeah.
I have a question. What are, like, so obviously people on the left, there are things that they obviously, I am not a big fan of the Republican Party. What is, and not to like I'm not trying to put you guys in a situation where you're just bad mouthing, the things that you support, but what do you what are the things that you dislike the most about the Republican Party, and what are some of what are the things that draw you back into it?
All right, can
If
I
you
do that,
understand what I'm
CJ? And you
Rob,
cover-
go ahead. Rob, go ahead.
Okay.
I'll just pitch in later.
There's, first of all, there's the difference between the Republican Party and conservatives. I'm getting to the point where I hate almost all political parties because I think it's two faces of the same problem. To me, what the Republican Party should represent is limited government, fiscal responsibility, organized borders, the government leaving us the hell alone, that protecting us from like bad guys, and primarily leaving us the hell alone. I mean, that's traditional conservatism. What I think it's morphing into, and by the way, this is why I supported Trump. I think only one liberal ever asked me, why do you like Trump? And it's not like I really like Trump. I don't like DC. So anyone that wants to, whatever you would call, drain the swamp or weaken the power that the federal government has over people gets my support. You can have the giant chicken god run for president. And if he's interested in weakening the power of the federal government over us, I support them. That's what keeps them bringing me back, because who else am I going to vote for? But more often than not, I feel like I have a choice between big government and big government light. And I really don't want either. A, we're like $64 trillion in debt. We can't sustain this crap. B, the federal government seems to get more power over us every day, and big tech is spying on us every day. I do really think our freedoms are at threat. And if that's the case, I got really no other choice who to vote for. There's a conservative party, but there's no point in voting for them because I might as well not vote because they're not going to get elected. I mean, so that's my issue with the Republican Party. That's what I support, and that's why I keep on coming back to them, even though they piss me off as much as the Democrats recently. CJ?
Yeah, so what you said is right, Rob. There's a very stark difference between being a Republican and being a conservative, because they just couldn't be further from the truth. And what what the one thing that I don't like as a is that Republicans, they just give up. They just give up midway. They're just spineless.
theater.
But if you look at, and if you look at the Democrats, they will take you to hell.
They win
for even the smallest issue, and that is one thing that I love with the Democrats. They will fight for what they believe in. That was once supposed to be the Republican mantra, but then it's totally flipped now.
The Republicans give up, and the Democrats win.
Yeah, true. And the Democrats never give up. Okay, they'll take you to hell. They will make you suffer, but they will get their way. That's one thing that I like about them.
I actually disagree with that. I think Democrats do give up very easily, but
I just feel like the Democrats really, and I think the difference is the Democrats really believe in what they're pushing, where the Republicans just want to get elected and don't really believe in conservative values. Otherwise, they'd push for it.
Right.
I'm sorry, I'm done.
It's so weird because I feel like me and Jay feel like the exact opposite. And I mean, I feel like in a way, Republicans have kind of like since Trump, I think they lost a little bit of their fire.
Yes.
But in 2016, the passion that Republicans had, I felt like they kicked Democrats' asses all of the time. So
the passion was coming from one guy.
I think Joe Biden he sucks, and he sucks so bad, that he's so spineless. I would say that's his number one trait is that he's spineless. But there's there's a lot of other people in the Democratic Party like AOC or Stacey Abrams or Ilhan Omar that like you said, they will fight over and over, over no matter what it is. And that those are the people, and Bernie, I love Bernie because Bernie will actually fight you. And I genuinely believe in the things that he believes in. And I believe that he actually cares. While Biden, like you guys said, I think a big criticism, I think for people of both parties is that they're sometimes just pretty spineless. They just want to get elected. I feel like Biden just wanted to get elected almost to brag to Obama or something. I don't know. Be like, hey man, I got here too.
Oh, he's too old.
No.
What I said. He's too old. He's too old. That's what my problem is. He's too old. See, for me personally, I don't like labels. So for me, I just kind of vote where I figure at the time, how's it going to affect my life? I've voted both ways. I never like labels. And it's probably because I have a biracial family. So, and I had because people will tell you, oh, if your mother's white, your father's black, then you going to make me choose. And how can I choose? Because, and that will go into a whole nother conversation we can have one day. So I think because I come from a biracial family, I don't like labels. So I kind of go with more of my heart, my mind, and my conscience, and who I think is going to meet my needs at the time. So I really don't. And what's funny is every time I get my voter card back, say 1 year I voted Republican. So the next year when I get my card, they got Republican. And the next year I vote Democrat, then they'll switch my card. And I don't put anything on there. So it tickles me how people will choose for me. So that's kind of and I noticed that because I deliberately do not want to be labeled because it's just like in our governor's race. I live in Maryland. The governor that was Republican, I knew that he was going to get certain things done. So that's how I voted. And lo and behold, when I got my card the next time, it said Republican. I'm like, oh, nope. Because then I turned around the next time and I voted Democrat because I just look for who's the best to get the job done and is going to make my life and my family's life better. And as far as Biden, I don't care if he's Republican, independent, Democrat, he's too old. You get to a point where you're just too old. So that's how I take with him. Sorry, he's just too old.
I feel you. I mean,
I don't care what he is.
I would say that's the mine. We should move on to the questions, but I will say my least favorite part about American politics is everyone is old. That was my biggest thing with 2020. I loved Bernie, but Bernie was even too old. Bernie was too old. Trump was too old.
They all too Biden, old. Get some.
They're all way too old.
Pete, I like Pete. I'm like, okay, let Pete be our president. I mean, what are you going to do with all these old? Now, see, if you want a regular job and you're old, you can't get it. Only in politics can you get a job.
Well, to me,
old.
I don't care.
Okay, and I don't understand that.
Yeah, I really couldn't care about anyone's physical attributes. It's all about policies.
I was going to say The problem is that
Okay.
it's our system is designed so as to like make sure that like old people are the people who like stay in power, right? So we have
Yeah.
literally like voter age limits. I think they're called age of election laws or whatever, right? You have to be 35 in order to run for president. You have to be 30 in order to get into the Senate. And also, right, like our system naturally favors people who have like corporate connections and connections with lobbyists, corporate donors who tend to be older people, right? Because those people advance to the private sector, so they got all those corporate connections for their donations, and then they can advance into politics using those connections. And usually at that point, right, you're at least in your 60s.
I bet we
So,
all agree on term limits, don't we?
yep.
Oh
Agree
yeah.
on what?
Oh yeah.
Agree on term limits.
Totally.
I bet all of
Yep.
us agree on.
Oh, yes,
term-
absolutely.
Yes. I
Especially if you
agree.
got somebody in there that sucks, you want them to go out. Yes, definitely.
And
Do we
also,
all agree, Jacob?
Oh yeah. I mean, dude, like if
Wow.
if
100%.
Biden ran again, I'd be like, dude, just settle down, bro. Like,
Go.
100%.
go sit down, bro. Go play some golf with Trump. Like literally, like y'all need to chill out. Like,
100%.
also,
Sujay, you said something.
No.
Okay. Well,
sorry,
go ahead.
I just wanted to add on to Robert's point, talking about like how like you didn't really identify as Republican, and you see a lot of like conservatives who are not really identifying as Republican. I think that a similar thing is happening on the left as well. So like personally, the only reason why I identify as a Democrat is just because it's like just an overall larger in the United States, right? I feel like there really ought to be a lot more left-leaning parties. I mean, it makes no sense that somebody like Bernie Sanders and somebody like AOC, right? They're grouped into the same party as someone as Biden, right? So like it in my opinion, I think that like on the left, all of us basically just identify as Democrats just because we know that like we have more power against Republicans if we all group together. In actuality, like if we lived in any other country, right, Biden would be a conservative, Biden would be right wing, and Bernie Sanders and AOC, right, they would be the true left wing of the country. So it's like personally, like the only reason why I identify as Democrat is just because I know that like if progressives were to go off by themselves, right, Republicans would win the vote because the Democratic vote will be split. So that's really the only reason why Democrats stick together. So really, or like the party itself is weak, naturally weak in that way, because it's just a coalition between progressives and like liberals in the American sense. So that's why I think that the Democratic Party is naturally weak. And I feel like personally, we have to get to a political spectrum in that it will be advantageous for progressives to form their own party. But unfortunately, if we do that now, progressives would lose all power.
Well, I
Yeah.
think in reality, there's really three parties. There's a centrist big government party, which is the Republicans and Democrats, the moderates. I think they're the leftists, and then there are the conservatives. And the leftists and conservatives never really win, and the centrists, whether it's R or D, stay in power usually no matter who's in there. That's my opinion.
I mean, Rob, that is probably the best take I think I've heard from you in all of our time.
Really?
Nobody. Oh, I feel like that's the thing is I don't feel like these like when you like talk to me or Jay and you listen to our beliefs, do you really think our beliefs are the same as Joe Biden's?
No.
Nor do I feel like you or Sujay's beliefs are really that close to where Trump was either, or so it feels like, I mean, like you said, man, it just like they're just a bunch of politicians that they're so disconnected from regular like working a job, paying bills, having a family, normal like life, that they don't understand or have any perspective.
I also noticed that both the left and the right, at least talking to you two, seem to have a lot of the same goals in generally. Like, I care about the poor, I care about the middle class. We have completely different views on what's best to fix that problem, but I do think we have more similar goals, even if we're completely in utter opposites on how to achieve them. And I think that makes us at least not spiritually, value-wise, not as opposite as they like to portray us.
Yeah, I would actually say more than anything, I feel like the biggest like disagreement I think I have with you and Sujay is like immigration. I feel like that's actually like our biggest, like we're so far apart on that one because I'm very pro
Okay.
immigration, and you guys are, you know, not as much. Which I don't want to get into that discussion or anything, but that's for me. Like I feel like there's a lot of things, like that we do
Okay.
like you said, like that we do agree on.
Well, let's bring that up since you brought it up. I get a question, right?
Yeah, go
Okay.
ahead.
Yes, yes.
Because I personally, we discovered that we discussed this, that I really strongly think every issue has a downside. And talking about immigration, that basically the average American median household income hasn't changed for 20 years. It's actually dropped in some places by 44% since 2007. Why are we stuck with the same medium income? And that's a loaded question because I have an answer to it.
Yeah. So I think, so personally, at least I am an economics major, right? So I've studied this a lot. I think that it goes back to the idea of the sticky wage, like theorem. So essentially, right, like what the sticky wage theorem is very simple. Essentially, like as inflation rises, right,
Mhm.
the real wages of workers decreases, right? Theoretically, right, workers, if you know we were all unionized and
true.
we all, you know, fought as a collective, then workers themselves, right, they would, you know, stop working, go on strike so that we could, you know, increase you know, our wages, you know, proportional to income. But we've seen that, like, because America is very individualistic, and has become, you know, very much against, you know, union culture. We see that, like, corporations have essentially taken advantage of that and really failed to increase, you know, wages proportional to inflation. So really, I would say that it goes back to the idea of what capitalism is, right? The reason why wages haven't increased is because capitalism, because people are working in their self-interest, right? So corporations working in their self-interest, working to maximize the profit of shareholders, are obviously never going to increase the wages of workers, right? Because that increases the wages of, it increases the price of you know, factors of production, which ultimately eats into their
Why?
profits. So I would say, right, if we want to increase wages, right, we have to get back to unionization. We have to introduce socialist policies in order to increase wages, in order to make sure that wages continue to increase, continue to increase as cost of living increases and as inflation increases.
I believe the exact opposite. The reason why wages are basically flat is because we're importing cheap labor. If you're a business owner and you basic farmers, a average American wants minimum wage now is 12 something, I think.
750.
What depends what state? I'm sorry. It depends greatly on what state you're in. Okay.
Yes, it's 750 in most of the South.
Okay, yeah.
Though.
But somebody will work a lot less. You're going to pick the person that works less. And because of that, I mean, that's exactly why big business and all these businesses were opposed to the law. That's why they have these immigration policies. That's why they fight so hard for immigration. Because if you have cheaper labor, you drive the labor cost down. I mean, it's cheaper labor costs. That's huge. They're the reason why there's no closed border. And that's the reason why it's been flat for 20 years. There is no more, why pay an American this much when you can pay a non-American a lot lower? And they'll probably, sorry if I'm, sometimes work harder. I went to Ocean City in Maryland. Every single person there was from actually Eastern Europe. I was kind of shocked. And the guy is like, yeah, they work harder and they'll take less money. So, wow. He said point blank. You know, I mean, maybe it's a little bit of both, but without a doubt, and I completely understand we are founded on immigration. You know, I'm okay with Ellis Island. I'm okay with legal immigration. But I do strongly think illegal immigration benefits big businesses by allowing them to cut labor costs.
I mean, I have you ever worked in like a labor job before?
Yep, I've worked. I guess I'm lucky to a point where I've worked in factories, I worked in warehouses, I've dug ditches. I grew up in Baltimore City. I've had the crap jobs, and
Yeah.
it makes me
So I mean,
appreciate what I have now. And I
well,
do
it's just
understand.
weird because like you say that like how can you do manual labor and then like undervalue like the work and that goes into it, like I've
I don't undervalue.
landscaped and built houses and stuff, and so like how can you say that like you should pay them less? Like they deserve at least 15
I've never.
with what they're doing.
Well, here's the thing.
So
If you
it's
sit
just
there and
like,
pay somebody 15, who do you think is going to eat that money? The price of that. Okay, you're paying somebody. Okay, a hot dog is, let's just say a hamburger, the $1.50, right? You're going to pay. You used to pay the workers, I'm making up numbers, 12. Now you want to pay the workers 24. I'm making up numbers. Well, that's still cost in that business. Who's going to eat that extra cost? I can tell you, it's going to be passed on to the consumer, or they're going to cut labor.
well, I mean, I would say, I mean, my personal thing would be where it's going to come from is I would hope it comes from these rich assholes that don't care about us, that make billions of dollars a year. I would hope it came from them, because when someone works at like McDonald's making $7.25 an hour, the profit that they're generating by keeping that drive-through running is at least 40-50 an hour at the very least, during like,
have you ran a business?
and so like, oh my
Sorry,
god, dude, I'm 22, bro.
Okay,
like,
I know that, but my point is, I've have a company, and yeah, I'm not rich because I wouldn't be here, but I've spent about 30 or 40,000 bucks on it in 5 years of my life. And maybe it won't make money, but there's no way in hell I did all this work and spent this money for me not to get rich off of it. Because I put in extra work. I worked on nights and weekends. Yeah, there are people that abuse it, but if somebody does extra work, they should take some extra money.
I mean, I think you should get some extra money. I just don't think you should ever have billions of dollars.
Okay.
Like ever, like
I think we have to recenter I think we have to recenter what our argument is on. So we have to go back to like the idea of just to respond to Rob's point about like immigration being the driver behind stagnant median income. I mean, I just don't see that. I mean, I think there's an overall economic consensus that's no longer true, because I mean, if you look at, for instance, the
economists agree with each other. I've never heard that.
I mean, most economists do. I mean, like, if you look at like, for instance, Keynesians and classicals, they both agree that like immigration isn't the thing that causes stagnant labor. I mean, a stagnant income, right? I mean, like if you look at various theories of economics, right, they see on this particular issue that immigration is not the thing that's causing stagnant incomes. But like essentially, if you look at like the income of college graduates, for instance, you see that is also flat. And also that you have to consider that like corporations determine the salary that they're going to pay a position before they actually go out and hire somebody. So they're not going to hire, like, people aren't coming up to the corporation and saying, oh, you're offering a job for $14, I'll work for $12, right? Immigrants aren't coming up and saying that, oh, they'll work for less. Corporations have to decide what they're going to pay first, and then they advertise the position. So it's like I just don't see how immigrants are willing. First of all, they're not willing to work for less, right? They're willing to work for what the corporation advertises. And secondly, I mean, they're like, if you look at wages for college graduates, right, most of whom are not immigrants, you see that those are also stagnant. So I feel like most of the time it's a conscious decision that's being made by corporations to not increase wages proportional to inflation and proportional to cost of COLI increases, cost of living index increases. Instead of like targeting immigrants who for some reason want to work for lower wages. I just don't see that is the point, given that college graduate income has also stagnated as well. And secondly, I mean, going back to your point about like increasing wages are going to increase like the cost of products and the cost of products to consumers. We see like in most industries, right, the wages from labor, right, they're essentially like spread over hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of customers. So in reality, right, if you increase like wages by, I don't know, let's say $3, you know, the actual amount that you're going to increase the product by is like maybe like a couple quarters, right? Like a couple cents. So it's like it's really like the increase, then the increased burden that you're placing on consumers is in no way comparable to like the increased like success that you're giving to workers through increased wages. But yeah, that's
I'm
just
going to
me.
wrap up with this because I know we're running near the end of time. When Baltimore in the 50s, you had a solid middle class city. You had Bethlehem Steel. You had all this big industry. It all went overseas. A lot of our manufacturing went overseas. Why? Labor is cheaper. You cannot sit there and tell me that cheaper labor has nothing to do with this.
Yeah, but
Where the hell
you're
did
speaking
Baltimore,
about you're speaking
United
specifically about
States,
immigration,
where did
not outsourcing.
manufacturing go?
But you're
It's
talking
the
about immigration,
same
not
thing,
outsourcing. I
cheap
don't think
labor.
no, but you're saying,
No,
I'm saying you're
cheap
saying
labor,
immigrants
the
coming to
access to
America are
cheap-
not the people who are driving down wages, right? Outsourcing is driving down income abroad, right? But it's like
cheap
immigrants coming to
labor
America
drives
is
down
not.
wages.
But immigrants coming to America don't want to work for cheaper wages. They don't want to work for less
They'll
wages. They want to
accept
work
cheap
for the
labor.
wages that are advertised by corporations, right? They want to work at the wages that are advertised by the positions that corporations have. I mean, corporations have to figure out what they're going to pay somebody before they advertise the position, right? So it's like I don't see how immigrants coming to America and coming into the American labor market.
Well, I think we gotta wrap up.
Okay,
here,
we gotta
though.
wrap up.
We're pretty over time, so we can save this for next week.
Okay, and next week. All right, guys.
Immigration.
Any final thoughts? I've talked too much, so I'll shut up. Any final thoughts?
It's okay. I think we can cover. We can talk about. We can talk about some immigration next week and some more of the other stuff we.
That's
since we left the conversation, since we cut it short.
that would be good.
All right, we're gonna wrap up here. Sujay asked everyone to stay on after we stop recording, if we can still do that, or we can just cut it. So thanks everybody for listening, and have a great night. See ya.
You too, guys. Take care.
Thank you.